Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Medarot News. So I'm joined again by our resident expert Medarotter, Kura Izagami.
Thank you for having me again. It's always great to be here.
So yeah, this week's gonna be a very basic week. We had a whole bunch of. We already had the whole, the whole month, the whole of next month already spoiled for us. And also,
Right,
if you
yeah.
look, and then if we look at the the super battle event, 28 days. That's 4 weeks of nothing, of absolutely
Yep.
nothing.
It does actually make it kind of nice though they added that, so it at least gives us an idea of when they're planning something. So maybe 3 or 4 days out from when that's supposed to close, we should expect an update or a video or something saying, hey, we got a new event coming.
Yeah.
So at least now we're not completely in the dark on trying to figure out when they're going to have something.
4 weeks is gonna be the max, but I guess it's something.
Yeah. It's better than having to, guess every week, are we going to have an event or not? So it's nice to at least have that timer. And even if
Yeah.
there is nothing to really do, the EX trials really do add that extra spice of difficulty for those that are looking for that challenge.
Mm-hmm. All right. This is... Okay, why is this not changing slides? So this week we got Leo and Scorpio in the gacha.
It's definitely been great to see those two come back as well, especially for their first official 3D debut, along with a pretty solid chunk of the rest of the Zodiac. And it's also especially nice to see that their kits overall haven't really changed.
Besides
So
the power nerf, that is.
Yeah, Leo may not be as exceptionally and absurdly powerful as he was in Navi, but he's still got Hyper Beam to boast, which is still a very powerful attack in and of itself.
And that we get
He's
to
just
actually pull him from the gacha.
Yeah, he's just more, how do I put this? Competitively balanced, I suppose, is the word to use.
Yeah.
His leg ability, though, does make him rather interesting on the fact that even though it's multi, his leg ability is called G control, most likely short for ground control, which gives him S rank compatibility on any and all terrains if his metaphor stays above a certain percentage.
Which is, I don't know, what's
And
that?
If I recall correctly,
741. That's pretty speedy for a mod. Pretty speedy for any leg.
And that's just by itself, too. If I recall correctly, I think, if not one of us, and I think another friend of ours actually did crunch the number and find that it was like a solid percentage, if depending on how good your compatibility was, or it was a solid percentage debuff.
It's a solid, solid gain also. It's a percentage gain or percentage debuff.
Yeah, wasn't it like 20% or something on S rank?
Yeah, 20% both on S rank, 20% minus on D rank.
Yeah, exactly. And
then
like you said, he's already hitting what, mid 700s for his mobility?
Yeah, and that's pretty much above average.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure.
Being that most bots are below 600, 700 actually.
If you can hit 600 for mobility, you're actually doing relatively decently. Anything under there, you're probably going to be hurting. But if you can hit this into the 700s, you can call yourself pretty solid. But the fact that Leo, for a multi-leg, is hitting mid-700s by himself is actually pretty good. It actually puts him on most... I'm going to say slightly higher than most other multis we've had so far, such as with Beastmaster or Death Providence or La Pucelle, who also are clocking that same range.
Actually,
but
no.
Because Leo has ground control... Yeah, but because Leo's clocking ground control on there
he's gonna be better but balanced across.
Exactly.
Everything.
The only drawback to that is that he requires you to have met the Metaforce charge requirement in order to do that. And if it follows most other standard rules, it means at 5-star you need at least a 30% charge.
Yep.
Which isn't hard to get, but it's going to cost you a turn to charge.
And at 1-star, this is 2 turns.
Oh, yes.
Everything but 5 actually. It's 2 turns.
Yep.
Or 1 turn plus hit. Or 2 or 10.
Yep. And so overall, Leo is still a pretty solid bot to shoot for. The way I basically told my friends about it is that if you had access to Arc Beetle and you managed to pull him or Beastmaster in previous banners, because you have access to Hyper Beam already, it's not going to be as high of a priority to shoot for Leo, but the leg ability alone does make him pretty worth shooting for anyway.
Alright, next up we also have Scorpio, who's the other Zodiac that we found out. He also got nerfed.
Yeah, say...
compatibility.
Yeah,
Alright, competitively balanced.
I wouldn't say Scorpio actually got nerfed. She actually kept much of her kit originally, except for Transform, which actually isn't in the game yet, so that makes sense. But instead, they replaced it with Hyper Crept, which is basically a random buff to two random stats to all allies, which can be decent, I guess, if you know how to roll the die and they land in your favor. But both arms also are virus, which makes her really useful for turn skipping strategies. But when I also looked at the numbers again when they released the stat breakdown video, her left arm had a base power of 1200.
Oh, sorry, I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah, her left arm had a base power of about 1200, which actually puts it pretty high up there for ailment based melee attacks.
Yeah. Actually, what about Poison Scorpio? I mean, not Poison Scorpio. Not Proud Viper. What's the leg one that I always use?
Sickle Cutter.
Yeah, Sickle Cutter.
Yeah, Sickle Cutter always is a solid shot as well, especially since he was available from start. So, for the most part, Scorpio isn't bringing anything new to the table that we don't already have. Actually, so if you have access to...
let me
sorry,
check.
Go ahead.
Actually, no, I think, yeah, by the looks of it, slightly weaker than... His left arm is slightly weaker than... It's on par, but his right arm is a lot weaker than Sickle Cutter, because Sickle Cutter has both arms hitting really hard, whereas only the left arm on Scorpio actually hits hard.
Right, and like I was gonna say, if you already have access to virus, which at this stage in the game is actually very easy to get a hold of, you really won't be hurting too much when it comes to how badly you're gonna need Scorpio.
And to make matters worse,
if it's on
dots
full
don't do that much damage anyway.
No,
I hate to say it, but dots don't do much damage. Damage over time, that is.
Yeah, it's. I mean, in early game, it's very useful as I'm just gonna say as a crutch, because people's HP is low enough that 50 HP over 1 or 2 seconds,
it's
or
actually
75
something.
HP over 1 to 2 seconds. Yeah, it'll actually be something worth considering.
Like 3,000. 50.
Yeah, but
50 over a few seconds is like
game,
nothing.
Yeah, once you start hitting late game and you start getting HPs in the thousands, yeah, you're gonna have to start dropping DOT. But for the most part, yeah, Scorpio doesn't bring a whole lot to the table that's not already here. Her leg ability Breakneck is rather interesting on the sense that it's or at least based on what I made out of it, it was like a passive buff to heat times when performing an action. That's basically the only way I was able to translate it anyway.
It's just a flat passive, that's all.
So it's good for getting you to the line faster. And in fact, whenever I was battling Scorpio in the story, now granted leg abilities aren't applied there, she did seem to be a little speedier than most of her other allies on the field. So most likely that was, that's at least gives you an idea of how she would perform. So overall, out of the two so far for the Zodiac, Leo particularly has the priority if you don't have Hyper Beam. But even if you already do, I'd say he at least has more viability between his head and legs, more than Scorpio.
Alright, so next up we also have Beastmaster, which I know a lot of people have wanted him, mainly because spaghetti legs.
Oh yes.
They're really fast.
Oh yes.
At least back then it was like meta. It became meta. Back then.
Oh yes, and he still technically is considered meta because he has such a viable and ranged shooting kit, especially with having Hyper Beam as a left arm, which makes it easily spammable.
Yeah. Whereas most of the Hyper Beams we've been seeing, they're all hit parts, limited use.
Yep. And usually they only had one use at best, except for, of course, Parallel Deuce, who's a final boss and says, screw the rules.
Yeah.
So aside from that, it's actually really nice to see Beastmaster make another comeback, especially in a sense where we're starting to get some new change-ups to strategy and meta with the new leg ability. But I really don't think that's going to stop Beastmaster at all, given that his ability is a new one coming to the game called Trigger Happy.
And it makes him more powerful every time he crits.
Which means if you can score someone with no defend, which means you're guaranteed a crit, your power is definitely going to be going through the roof already, on top of already having a good shoot nuker crit and kit. Just using him pure.
Because the 10% boost at 5 stars already, I think, 1,600. Because it will give you like a 150% boost. So basically, your power isn't 160. It's now like 2,400.
I can also confirm already that the use of Hyper Beam, I'm not going to say it's meta. Well, of course it is, because it's an overpowered attack, but if you can build it properly, you can make very, very good use of this for shoot nuking. An example, I'm going to use my current build for my main bot is Cross Messiah's head with Metabee's legs, Ochitsuker, and the Death Beam for my left arm. So basically the way I have it set up is I'm going to take full advantage of the ×2 power buff at the 30% charge, because it has the pierce damage. But because I'm using full charge with Cross's head, I'm going straight to 100%, which gives me the ×3 damage buff. And then if I add Metabee's leg ability Charge Shot on top of that, which passively boosts my shooting damage and my success rate, I can officially confirm with this, and I've been trying to play around with the numbers to see if there's any variance, but so far the data's been pretty consistent. I've been able to clock a pretty solid average. I can clock a pretty solid average of over 11,000 damage very consistently, just in the few tests I performed to see how well it can carry.
Yeah.
So in terms of pure shoot nuking power, even though Beastmaster has made appearances in the past and would be, for lack of a better term, slightly dated at this point, he's not letting that stop him, and that's especially including the inclusion of his new leg ability, Trigger Happy.
Okay, and next up, we also have Hell Phoenix, who's a Spotlight gacha.
So, been in game from start, but nice to have, highlighted.
I mean, he has auto repair, if I'm not wrong.
Yep, that sounds about right, which means basically over time he's healing lost HP by a certain percentage multiplier of his Metaforce charge.
Oh no, not that useful though, to be honest. Being that Hell Phoenix is just fire, and fire is useless, especially late game.
Yep, late game, unfortunately, DOTs like Fire and Melt become less useful. I mean, the auto repair ability on his legs, and then especially being flight, means they'll have pretty solid propulsion to them.
Yeah.
So if you're in need of a flight leg, it's worth using, and then the auto repair is good because you have access to slowly healing over time. The problem, however, is that the multiplier for it is set so low that even if you have the leg fully capped at 5-star, you're only getting, and I'm going to
300.
Botch the number here.
300.
It's between like 2 and 3%.
I'm sorry. What was that 5 stars is 10 times your Metaforce charge. The amount you charge, so there'll be 300 damage.
So that actually isn't as bad as I thought it was. It can be very useful. The problem, however, is the fact that it is indeed Metaforce reliant. But because you're also consistently healing over time, because you're consistently healing over time, as long as you can keep yourself protected, you could probably make back a pretty solid amount of HP you lost from a hit without really having to pay attention to it. So if you are going to go after Hell Phoenix for whatever reason, the legs definitely are going to be your big MVP. After that, you really don't need to pull for him much longer, since auto repair is going to be one of the only reasons you use him. Plus, especially since his legs can't support any heavy parts.
So I guess, alright. Okay. And
they were going to highlight him eventually because he does have some really nice art after being retouched with it. But otherwise, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yep. Alright, so the other leg abilities. What am I calling them? Metaforces. Yeah, leg abilities. Duh. Alright, so we got Hippopotamus, which has Trapbuster, and he destroys all traps on the field.
Or at least ones placed against foes, which can also be useful, but unfortunately, traps are they're a very niche skill. Not to say that they're terrible, but they don't deal a lot of damage consistently because they still allow your foe to attack anyway, and they lose the amount of damage they deal over time.
And also Great Kabuki also has Charm. I think we've seen Charm before.
We have. Fancy Ale has it as her ability as well on release.
Which deals which unfortunately Great Kabuki is also female.
No, actually he's male.
Oh wait, what, really? Okay.
Yeah, he's male, so we officially have in game 2 bots, one of each gender, that have Charm as a leg ability. Cool. And for Great Kabuki, that actually does pretty well for him because of the fact that it's a speedy leg as a wield. He already has really good mobility on him, which makes him good for stadium and road terrains already. But if you add that high mobility with the charm, he's going to be taking significantly less damage if you're facing off against a female team.
Yeah. Alright, so Sekizo has continuous P, which grants 8, 16, 24, 32, or 40 bonus speed for the first 5 actions.
That, I think it's
no, that is a lot. Never mind.
Oh, it is a pretty solid buff. However, if I recall correctly, that only applied to his cooldown stat if they didn't change it from 9.
No, I think it... No, it's...
Or did they change it so now it's just to a flat rate to his mobility overall?
Yeah, it's a flat rate to his mobility, so it won't actually boost the parts cooling.
Yeah, in that case, he actually, even for a tank leg, at least gets some pretty decent speed to him. And for tank legs, that's actually really good. Unfortunately, his kit being all missile makes him very limited in his use, but a leg ability like that actually is pretty solid.
Maybe you can use him. Of course,
we covered. Yeah.
And then we
covered Beastmaster's Trigger Happy.
Yep, and then we got Potomi, who has passive heating to all meta parts. I think all shooting. I might have forgotten that.
Yeah, it's
all shooting.
Specifically.
Oops,
yeah,
it
specifies specifically shooting parts.
It's an alright amount, I guess. 150.
It's not bad.
Yeah, it's something. At least for the high.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we already know Scorpio and Leos. Alright, let's move on to the super battles.
Yeah, we officially got a couple of new EX trials this week with the introduction of Leo and Scorpio, and even after the banners leave, you still have a shot at, facing off against the Great Lion and the Scorpion. But because they're EX trials, make sure you're prepped with your best parts and you bring your A game. Actually, I better say your A+ game, because these trials do not let up and they are built competitively to ruin you.
Okay, so the mutations are no defense for the first battle, biped legs for the second battle, full sets, and enemy medals boosted for the third battle.
Now that one definitely can be proven very difficult. I mean, no defense parts can be tricky, but I'm not going to say impossible, because you can build strategies without having to use defense.
Actually, the full sets one isn't that bad either.
No, and biped is a very easy modifier to overcome.
Beastmaster legs.
Yeah. However, full sets only can be a little tricky depending on how you do your builds. But if you add the medals boosted to 200 on top of that, it's going to add for a pretty tricky fight, unless you've managed to maintain a purist habit through the game, which at this point, if you're still doing it, props to you, because even for me playing all through Medarot 9 as a purist, this game very quickly broke that habit for me.
And
so I have parts of at least, a dozen different bots, all capped at 5-star, but none of them are pure sets.
Yep, and Scorpio, who is also the exact same thing, only with Scorpio instead.
Actually, let me double check that real quick, because I actually did write down the multipliers for it recently.
Multipliers for which?
for both of the fierce battles. Yeah, actually, according to this, based on what our buddy Toasty mentioned, Leo's actually is no shooting parts and flight legs only for his
Oh,
level 1 and his level 2.
oh yeah, you're right. That's weird.
So yeah,
I think I think it got mixed up because for some reason it appeared as biped on both.
I'll have to double check that again.
Oh
But
yeah,
if
you're correct. Scorpio has is a flight leg only.
right, and that
And-
alone makes it
and
between
his-
the two of them. That alone makes it.
And his
I'm not gonna say
what's it called?
tricky, but
Okay, so Scorpio is correct. Leo is wrong.
yep,
Leo is
So, according
no
to this,
shooting
is-
for the first battle.
yep,
Second
Level
battle is
2
flying only, and the last battle
and
is
then
enemy has 1.5 times the damage, and their medals are boosted. For some reason, it appeared as both the same. It's weird.
yeah, that seems odd for sure. And like I mentioned, I haven't had a chance to actually attempt these new EX trials just yet. I only had a chance to do a quick once over and figure out what the modifiers were. But our buddy Toasty has actually managed to complete them already. That the mad lad that he is, and was able to actually help me verify and confirm what the modifiers were. So,
Oh no, I just for some reason got like when I opened the game, it just showed me the wrong thing.
yeah, but like I said, mine was only a once over. But according to what Toasty mentioned as well, these two battles in particular were significantly easier than most of the other ones we've had so far, where they have either a really tricky modifier that's hard to overcome, or the difficulty is just amped so
Okay,
high because the teams were built that well.
Okay, why can't I pen this? Whatever. Yeah, so
Not a
definitely
huge
easier,
issue, really.
from what I heard.
Yeah, they are significantly easier, but not a huge issue. If if folks are interested in learning more details on these new EX trials, we have links to the Rising Beetle Discord, of course, at the end of every stream. So if you do play and want some more information, or are interested in learning how to play or potentially try the game yourself, we're always happy to give you a hand and get you set up.
Yeah, and yeah, if you need any translations, go through me. And
Yep.
go to Kura and the other people if you want strategies.
Yep, or basic breakdowns on who's coming and whatnot. I do my best to try to keep up to date, but the new leg abilities definitely does make things, I'm not going to say tricky, but it adds that new spin that determines how good something is or if it's worth just collecting.
And also meta changes every week, thanks to that.
Yeah. It definitely spices things. I wouldn't quite say it changes, but it definitely spices things up because it gives players access to parts that could potentially counter a lot of powerful meta.